Jameson Williams and three other Detroit Lions find themselves facing major suspensions from the NFL for violating the league's gambling policy. We'll talk about what this means. We'll talk about what this means for JMO and what the Lions should do in response right here on the DSN News Desk.
Never fall back. We will stay right where we at.
What's good, Detroit Sports Nation? I am Eric Vincent, your host here at the DSN News Desk. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time and support. With a bombshell of bad news on the front of the Detroit Lions from Jameson Williams and three other Detroit Lions who got in trouble for violating the NFL gambling policy. Now, even though the NFL has a lot of money and investment into sports betting now, they also put a lot of emphasis on players not betting. And if they do, at the very least, doing it responsibly. The biggest case and the first case, obviously, was Calvin Ridley. Suspended a whole year in his last year with the Atlanta Falcons for betting on in-league games. And apparently that was the issue that got him suspended for an entire year. For this instance with the Lions and Jameson Williams, there are 5 players that are actually involved, 4 of whom happen to be Lions, including Jameson Williams, CJ Moore, Quentin Cephas, Shaka Toney from the Commanders, and Stanley Berryhill as well. Those are the 5 players that are involved in this issue, and they've actually been given different suspensions and different repercussions for the matter. Jameson Williams is only being suspended for 6 games, as well as Stanley Berryhill. They are only suspended for 6 games, and I'll get to the details of why. The other 3 that are involved in this issue, CJ Moore, Quintez Cephas, and Shaka Toney, they're suspended for a whole year. They're getting the indefinite suspension as of right now, but it looks like it's going to be a year-long suspension. And based on the details that we've uncovered, we have them reported on our website, DetroitSportsNation.com, and tweets obviously are being surfaced all over social media as well. And looking at some of these details from what's poured out, it's kind of murky with some of the detail of what is causing this suspension, because per Alliance Sports, which is the agency that represents Jameson Williams, they put out a response letter actually, and they were very specific about what Jameson was responsible for, where they detail in it. It says, Alliance Sports confirms that client Jameson Williams has been suspended for the NFL for 6 games for violating the gambling policy. Jameson takes full responsibility for his actions and is very apologetic to the NFL, his teammates, and the fans and city of Detroit. However, it is important to note that Jameson's violation was not for betting on football, but rather due to a technical rule regarding the actual location in which the online bet was placed and which would otherwise be allowed by the NFL outside of the club's facility. So based on other reports I've seen, allegedly it looks like Berryhill and JMO were betting on college games, and they were betting on them outside of the NFL, I guess, facilities in which they were being taken place in. But I guess a bet is a bet, and I guess that is what turned into the response and the suspension that they're facing now, which being 6 games. Now, again, I'm not going to sit up here and argue about the legitimacy of the NFL's rule in terms of sports betting. I'm not going to be upset about players getting suspended about that, honestly. I understand wanting to keep the integrity of the game as intact as you can. And players betting, at least on in-league games, is not a good look. I'm not for it. I understand the league standing so firm against it. I have no problem with that. That does not bother me in this instance at all. JMO, if you were betting on league games, again, it doesn't seem to be the case. If it does turn out to be that, I'll be the first one to come correct myself. But at this moment in time, it didn't look like he was voting on or betting on in-league games. It doesn't look like what's being reported at the moment. So from what I'm seeing, if that issue is reliant on the location in which they bet and a technical issue being the result of it, that's kind of confusing to me. That's a little odd to me, just a slight bit. But again, I understand the league's stance on players not betting. If fans want to be able to watch sports and not think that big pockets are affecting the outcome of the game, players can't be betting on the games, y'all. Coaches can't be betting on it. The GMs can't be well. The front office people. It's for the fans. Sports booking is supposed to be for the fans. I'm not for players doing it. I understand why the league is taking a stamp on it. And this is obviously a big problem for the Lions. I believe it is, because contrary to a label that I believe was been prematurely put on Jameson Williams, this instance slams the case on it already. Because to me, in my opinion, I feel like a lot of online narratives that have been pushed about Jameson Williams are very unnecessary. I've never bought last season's issue that everybody was having because he was upset about not getting the football. He's a rookie. He was barely getting on the field. He had to go through the grueling process of an ACL recovery. And when he gets on the field, he's only playing like one series a quarter. And that's maybe one or two plays per that possession. I would be frustrated if I was him too. And especially for a dependent position like wide receiver, where they're predicated on getting the ball accurately in positions where they can be successful and show off their game-breaking ability. He didn't have a whole lot of that opportunity. Matter of fact, I would be a little more worried if he didn't have the passion to want to be productive. The Lions traded up to go get this guy. You didn't trade up for him to be a decoy all season. You want to look at him at some point and in some moments as your number one guy. Whether it's him or Amon-Ra playing the 1A, 1B role, you want to at the very least see that J-Mo has the ability and the fire and the desire to want to be that dude. So to me, I've never been worried about that. A lot of people have been pushing on that, and I think that's an overblown narrative that needs to stop. He was not a diva last season because he wanted to be productive with his team. He was like, I'm not buying that. I'm not here for that at all. People tried to blow up on him for this past week or this week, where people were saying that he wasn't at voluntary workouts. He wasn't there at the voluntary workouts with the team. Then Brad Holmes comes out with the direct statement saying he was just here yesterday. So that was out the water. Again, I feel like a lot of issues that are being thrown his way. People are getting mad at him about tweeting about Lamar Jackson. Some of these Photoshop pictures floating around and people believing that they're actual quoted comments from J-Mo. Some of them were, some of them were not. So for me, either way, I'm not freaking out on any of that. He's a kid. He's a rookie. He's clearly still invested with his team, and he showed that when he was coming to voluntary workouts, working out in California with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff. He was showing he was committed to the team and getting better until this point. This is the point that you can hit on. I don't want to hear about anything else before this. To me, I feel like all those narratives are garbage that people have put on to label him and make him look like he's something that he's not. He has not been a diva. He's a young rookie, a young kid trying to learn his way through the NFL. He don't have to be perfect through the process. The only thing he doesn't have to do is disrespect anybody or put himself in a position where he's putting his team in jeopardy. And that's what he's doing right now. I don't believe he's done anything prior to this that would indicate the labels that people are providing. That's my opinion of it. I don't think people are being accurate or fair with a lot of those assessments that they give him. But this right here, in terms of the gambling, I can't help him on with this. I cannot. I can't, bro. Like you in a position where you was gonna make millions anyway. I can't. Again, I'm never going to be able to buy into or be okay with players taking part in sports betting. And I don't care about how much the league is shoving it down your throat and how much money and investments that they have in it now. Yes, it's a complete 180 from what we just saw a few years ago in terms of what their stance was on sports betting and booking and all that type stuff. Now it's seems to be the number one investment that they have. And I'm okay with that if it's for the people. I'm not going to be okay with it if it's for the fans. J-Mo has to know that. He has to be more aware of the situation that he put himself in. And it's very unfortunate for what he's done to himself in terms of what he means to this team. Lions traded up to go get him. They were willing to wait and let him recover through his injury because they had enough belief in him with the upside that he provides as being a number one receiver for this team. Brad Holmes spoke on it and has said that. However, now you're in a position where the Lions could maybe in the draft go get another receiver early. Now Quinn Johnson looks like a more viable option early in the first round. That doesn't look like an impossible choice at this point now. It really doesn't. I don't think the Lions can come back into next season with the same receiving core, and you just throw in David Montgomery in the backfield. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of tight end. To me, they cannot come back with the same offense that they had last season, plus David Montgomery. I'm not riding with that. You lose Jameson Williams at this point. You lost DJ Shark. You lost Jamal Williams. You can't come back with Amon-Ra, who is your workhorse, but you could argue that he would be better possibly as a secondary chain-moving receiver, not just the workhorse that's getting every single pass force-fed to him. So you have Amon-Ra, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. To me, like, that's not enough. If you're trying to win the NFC, if you're trying to take this division, and if you're trying to do it with Jared Goff as your quarterback, you need the most help around him possible to make sure he's taking advantage of his offensive capabilities. That's what they need to do. You're not going to be able to just, I don't believe, go in with Tom Kennedy and a bunch of undrafted free agents and Amon-Ra, who's a fourth rounder, still a top 10 player, but still, again, he's a fourth rounder. You're not going in there with that little resource help around him with tight ends who are still young and trying to be, assertive pieces on this offense. If you're coming in with that limited bit of resources around in this offense, that's a problem for the Detroit Lions. They're going to have to invest in a tight end. They're going to have to invest in a receiver, and they now might have to do it earlier than they wanted to because of what JMO has put themselves in position for. This is bad. I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed. If anything that the Lions have been doing, again, and we've seen this regime do an amazing job of flipping the narrative of the historic narratives for the Detroit Lions. But if there's anything close to SOL of what we see in the past season, it's this. It's shooting yourself in the foot when you don't have to. It's putting yourself in harm's way when you don't have to. That is the epitome of SOL. And unfortunately, Jameson Williams just stepped right into that. It's a damn shame. Hope we'll see what the Lions will do to change it up and fix it. But talk to me in the comment section. I'd love to hear your feedback. What were your first thoughts when you heard this story? What do you think about it still now? Do you think the league's policy is fair about sports betting? Do you think players should be allowed to put bets up? Do you think they shouldn't? I'd love to hear whatever your feedback is in the comment section. Make sure you like the video as well and subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Running our way up and getting closer and closer to 7,000 subscribers. If we can make that happen with your support, we would greatly appreciate it. Tap in on our social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the above. Search and follow Detroit Sports Nation and lock in with me as well at I am Eric Vincent. Thank you all so much for your time and support. I really appreciate you being here. Go Lions. And I'll see you again soon with another update right here from the DSN News Desk. Peace.